Well, we're back for yet another class, Pali Summer Intensive Part 2, Class 16, I think. My goodness, it's almost like a college course coming to its end. And so, of course, once again, on behalf of the BAUS and the Chuan Yen Monastery in Carmel, New York, and the Wuju Memorial Library, I'm Stephen Sas, and I'm very happy to be with you here to continue our study of Gare and Karunatilaka's textbook, A New Course in Reading Pali. And I believe we are in the middle of lesson number 4. We're really moving along. It seems like a very long time ago when we were looking at Pali primer and trying to understand what the nominative case even meant. And now we're translating giant sections of Dhammapada. We've really come a long way, and I think that's wonderful. And so let me call up my text and share my screen. So I think we're somewhere around here. And we were looking a bit at these verses. I had a little bit of a question myself about one of the verbs. I wasn't entirely sure, so maybe we'll sort of briefly review numbers 129 and 130 again. Sabe tasanti dandasa, sabe bayanti machuno, atanang upamang katva, na hanea na gataye. And so here, to first review, we have this important concept of the genitive case expressing fear. And so we've looked at all the cases in sort of a general sense, but we should know that cases can take on sort of specialized idiomatic usages on occasion. And one of the special uses of the genitive case is to express what one is afraid of, what one is fearful of, which is, I think, very much like English. Because in English, I can say, for instance, I have a fear of heights. I have a fear of flying. And so this of heights or of flying is a kind of genitive in a way. And so we have that very similar type of construction in Pali as well. So it shouldn't seem too odd to our ears. So here, sabbe is this word that means all. It's plural. I hope we have fixed that typo in our book, which misleadingly said it was possibly singular. It cannot be singular. And it's nominative singular, plural. And tasanti means either to tremble or fear. It's plural, of course, tasanti. And here our word is expressed, danda is expressed in the genitive, as we expect for genitive of fear. So a danda is a staff or a rod. And as I mentioned, it can take on a further, more extended sense of violence as an abstract thing. The idea of violence, things that staffs and rods can inflict upon others. So all fear violence, or all tremble at violence. Sabbe bayanti machuno, all fear death, or all have a fear of death. Because remember here, the word machu is a you category type of noun, and the declension for the genitive is machuno. So that word, machuno, is a genitive word. The same for dandasa. And remember the key idea, which is that words have to take the case endings from the group that they are a part of. So it would not be machu asa, right? It has to come from that group. And then we have attanang upamang katvat, and we recognize our absolutive, also known as our gerund. I know that our textbook refers to it that way. Having done, having made, having created. Upamang comes from that idea of a simile and the same, or maybe a comparison. And attanang, we haven't had this class of nouns yet, but the atta, the self, attan, this is expressed in the accusative. If you want to look in the text, our textbook, for the whole model, the declension model, you can find this on page 83. I've made a note of that. So all, having compared it, having made a comparison with oneself. In other words, of course, the idea behind this is that if we understand that we are afraid of violence and we are afraid of death, we can easily understand, hopefully, that everyone else is as well. So, na haneya na gateye. So here was the slight bit of uncertainty on my part. So we have here hanati, the verb to either harm or to kill, in this kind of recognizable optative. One should not. This is that kind of it's not a tense, it's a mood, so it's expressing the possibility. And let's look for a second now at the entry of hanati, which gives me the answer to the question that arose in our last session. So here, I hope you can see on my screen, the verb entry for hanati in the dictionary, and it's a large entry. Don't be scared by all this stuff, all this text. We have the main meaning here, meaning to strike, to thresh, to kill, as I've said. And as we go down, there's a form of this verb, which is, we haven't had this, and we're not going to talk about it much, but it's called the causative. And essentially, in a simple way, all that means is that it's a form of the verb that expresses causing to do that verb. We don't really have this form very much in English at all. The only example I think that's often presented when talking about the causative form of a verb in English is the verb to fell. So to make a tree fall down, or to chop a tree down, to make a tree fall is to say to fell a tree. So perhaps that's a English language form of causative. It's much, much more common in Pali, and so we have to become used to the idea, but we're not going to cover it much in this class, except perhaps for this very verb. And so way down here, we have caus, which is the causative, and we have, for instance, hanapeti, to cause, to slay, to destroy, gahapeti, gahateti, and then finally, so here is our verb that is expressed in this very verse, gateti, to cause, to slay, and then it's given to us in what the dictionary calls the potential, which is what we're calling the optative. So just an important thing to know is that when you look up words in this dictionary, the Pali English dictionary, what we usually refer to as the dictionary, what we have been referring to and what our textbook has been calling the optative, the dictionary slightly confusingly calls potential, P-O-T. And then we have our very word, gataye. And notice that this is that shorter form of the optative which we started looking at, ending in the E. And it's a slightly different form, but it doesn't really seem to have much difference in the meaning. And it's probably here even perhaps as for metrical reasons. So we can translate this, you should not kill, or cause to kill. Or it's also possible to translate this last line as you should not harm, nor you should kill. And so that is this verse. I hope that clears up any lingering questions that might have been about this verb. And in fact, somebody very astutely spoke up and explained it for us. I don't remember who that was, but I extend my thanks again to her. Okay, so now maybe we'll move on. And I should just quickly mention the second half of this is the same, except for the second line, sabe sang jivitang piyang. And so life is expressed as a neuter nominative. That's the subject, life. It's being equated with another neuter, piyang, it is dear. And then we have this form of sabe in the genitive dative, for all or to all. Life is dear to all. And the other three parts of this are exactly the same. Okay. So maybe we can move on. We also covered number 19, which is a little bit complicated. So I wanted to call up this very nice set of graphics which I've been sharing with you. These are not mine. They're created by a monastic named Venerable Ananda Jyoti. I had this one up earlier, and then he has this one he's done it all for the whole book, so to speak. And I thought it'd be fun to look at this for a slight change of pace. So we did look at 19. We'll look at it again, just to make sure we fully understand what's happening here. Because it's very important as we study Pali to understand the why, not just that this equals that Pali, the translation is this, but we want to know as Pali students why it is. How does it become that way? And so here, bahum piche sahitang basamano natakaro hoti naro pamato. So here, the subject of this is actually expressed in this, for us, new kind of present participle, basamano. We've been talking about present participles for a few weeks now, and we have been looking at one kind with an N stuck in, NT, but this is another kind which we introduced in our last class with the mana suffix. They really have the same sense. So this is the verb basati, to speak, or perhaps to recite, in the present participle mana suffix type. So I think it's functioning as the subject as well. We've had this concept of the present participle functioning as a subject, a noun, so to speak. So basamano, one reciting, and then the che, he is taking the piche as even though. It could be maybe also taken as if. Even though is good. And then what is the object of this reciting? Bahung sahitang. So sahitang are the religious texts, which he translates as scriptures. And then bahu is explaining that further. It's great or abundant or a many. So even though reciting abundant scriptures, and then we have really our subject of the whole thing, the nara, the naro, the person or the man, and he's described in two ways. Right next to it, to the right, he's described as pamato. That means heedless, right? We've had this before, and we're going to have it again. The heedless one that's being equated. And he's also described as na takaro hoti. And I explained that the word takaro is made up of tut plus kara. So it literally has the sense of doing that. So he is not doing that. And in this verse, it means he doesn't do what the scriptures ask one to do. He just recites them, but he doesn't practice what he preaches, right? And now the second half, Gopova Gavo Ganayang Paresang na Bhagava Samanyasa Hoti. So here our subject is Gopo, which was related to the word for cow, which is in a basic sense the word go. And a gopo, he translates it as cowboy, which to an American person like me sounds very odd, because when I think of cowboys, I think of John Wayne or old black and white movies or people living in Wyoming. I don't really think of ancient Indian people taking care of cows. But in any case, he has chosen cowboy. I would perhaps choose cowherd, but we know what it means. And the va is a short, elided form of iva, which means like. So like a cow herd. And then how is he described? Ganayang, which I explained last time, is the verb ganeti in the present participle singular shorter form. And so you probably recall, because I've been mentioning it several times now, that the present participle singular nominative can exist in two ways. So in our book, for instance, there's the verb gachati, a good paradigm word, which is given as gachanto, going, and also alternatively with the same meaning, gachang, also going. And so this is that shorter version here, ganayang, counting, present participle, counting. And what is he counting? Gavo paresang, other people's cattle, right? So this, like a cowherd, counting other people's cattle. So paresang is genitive dative, of others. So paresang. And na bhagava samanyasa hoti. So here, the crucial thing to know is this is not a descriptor of the Buddha. That this is not Bhagava, the Blessed One, the Exalted One. This is a very different word with just a long mark over the A. Really changes the meaning, which kind of shows us how spelling is very important in Pali. So Bhaga with a long A is a portion, a part. And so here, Bhagavant is a partaker, and it is in the nominative. He does not partake of the ascetic life. And so I've explained that the word that this is based upon is samana. We've had samana from the very beginning. We've kind of talked about how it's related to the root shram, to toil, and it takes that sense of a ascetic striver. Shram is related, as you all know, to the reverse of it, which is the ashram, the place without struggle and toil, the place of rest and refuge. And this form of the word is sort of the abstract noun. And so the idea of it is the place where one the ascetic life. It's the ascetic life as an abstract thing. So that's our first verse of the two. I hope now with these two passages it's much more clear. And now we can look quickly, or maybe not so quickly, at the second one, which is 20. Appang piche sahitang basamano, dhammasa hoti anudhamachari, ragancha dosancha pahaya mohang, samapajano suvi mutta chitto, anupadiyano idava hurangva, sabhagava samanyasa hoti. So here, the first line is sort of the counterpart of the other first line. So here, everything is the same except for the first word, which is appang. Few, small amount, little. So even though that's the piche, reciting basamano, appang sahitang, few scriptures, and then we have this dhammasa hoti anudhamachari. And so the word anudhamachari means one who is living in accordance with Dhamma. So a charin is a goer or doer. It's related to the verb charity, but a charin is a person, a doer. And anudhamma means along with Dhamma. And it's sort of slightly redundant. Along with Dhamma, in accordance with Dhamma, Dhammasa. He is this. And now we have our three unwholesome roots. And you might recall that we have earlier, a few lessons ago, introduced the three unwholesome roots, but they were slightly different, right? We had in that kind of classic statement of the three unwholesome roots, lobha, dosa, and moha. And you might recall that I said at that time that on occasion, not that unusually, lobha is substituted with raga, which here is translated exactly the same. And so raga, which can also mean passion, it doesn't have the sense of passion in the angry sense, but it has the sense of passion in a kind of holding and grabbing and collecting sense. Passionate, wanting more. So raga here is greed, dosa, and moha is delusion. And then we have this very important word, which we've discussed a few times before, pahaya. What is pahaya? It's an absolutive of the verb pajahati, or pajahati, to abandon. So abandoning or having abandoned, that's the absolutive or gerund. So he is doing that. And what else is he doing? Sama pajano suvimutta chitta. So sama pajano is one with proper understanding, and then suvimutta chitta, those would be the four parts. So the mind is the chitta. Mutta is, well, really with V and su as prefix intensifiers, and mutta means liberated or released. It's based on the verb munchati. So with mind, perhaps we can say well released. And then we have this word anupadhyano, which is an interesting word based on the very common word upadana, which I've explained several times means taking up, grasping. And an upadhyano is one, it's based on the present participle, and it's negated. So the one who is not grasping, or just maybe not grasping, present participle, ida, here, or va, hurang, hereafter, or in the beyond. And then here is our pronoun suffix sa, he. And then it's the same, bhagava partakes, samanyasa hoti, of, he is partaking of the ascetic life, samanyasa. So I hope this explains well the intricacies of verses 19 and 20. And I'd like to take any questions or comments about it now, because I do wonder if everyone is on the same page, so to speak, as me. So if anyone would like to ask a question or present a slightly altered translation, this is your chance. Okay, I think we have Tet. Tet, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, what is your what is your question or comment?
My it's a question. My question is, um, when we translate Anudhamachari, it's already there Dhamma. Like so, when we translate it, it is like the one who lives in accordance with Dhamma. So I am wondering, we in our English translation we kind of omit Dhammasa
Yeah, I think so.
because it is
Yes,
redundant.
I think it's a little redundant. Let's
I
see
see.
how
I
the
see.
Venerable has it. He has um, living in accordance with Dhamma. So it would literally be something like living with Dhamma in a of Dhamma.
I
But
see. I
it's
see.
kind of redundant, I think. And so Dhammasa hoti anudammachari, living in accordance with Dhamma, would be, I think, a good translation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now we have Bonita. If you can unmute yourself. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So, do you want me to read it or
Do you
I?
have a question?
Not really.
I'm looking for questions or alternate translation suggestions right now.
Mhm.
If you don't have either of those, I'll come back to you later
Yeah,
then.
sure, no problem.
Okay. We have ES or S.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
I do have a question. Is the second line Ragan sa Dawson sa Bahaya Moham?
Yes.
Moham is ended with the accusative masculine, right? And Bahaya. Why we use a Bahaya in front of Mohan instead of all of the Ragan and Dawson?
So all three of these words, raga, dosa, and moha, are all expressed in the accusative. And just to restate, you might know this, but it's really the ung which has been elided with the cha and moved to this palatal. And so the absolutive pahaya, having abandoned, is going with all three. And it's just a feature of the Pali that it comes before the third in the middle. Is that your question? Am I answering it?
Yes, I see. So it is like so if we have like a four, for example, raga, dosa, moha, avija, then ragansa, dosansa, mohan sa pahanya avija. We can say that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And in fact, we'll have an example, I think, coming up today where we have a verb hoti and all the things that it's going with. We find classically one going before and the remainder all going after. So in a sense, the verb, or here the absolutive, often comes sort of in the middle of it all. It doesn't necessarily come at the end. But it
Okay.
is going with all three unwholesome roots.
Got you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Christopher?
Oh, yes. I'm just wondering about this hoti that occurs a lot with the genitive. Is the genitive actually on a noun that's it's modifying a noun that's before, like bhagava samanyasa hoti? Is that the samanyasa goes with the bhagava and the
Yeah, so you're talking about na bhagava samanyasa hoti, right?
yeah, or the last ones.
Yeah, so I guess it's na, of course, is going with the hoti, is not bhagava, a sharer, a participant or partaker, and then, as you've said, the genitive samanyasa, of the holy life.
Okay.
So he, which is built in a sense to the verb, he is not bhagava, a partaker, genitive, samanyasa, of the holy life.
Okay, I think that helps. So the genitive is just modifying the noun there, the partaker.
Yes, of the holy life. The of is the genitive.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, I think if we don't have any other further questions, then we can move on to the next set. Maybe I'll do the first one, and then we'll have people do the rest, which are very similar. So here, piyato jayati soko, piyato jayati bayang, piyato vipamutasa, natti soko kuto bayang. Sort of a question at the end. And so here, the subject of the sentence at the beginning is soko, sorrow. We've all heard of King Asoka or Ashoka, the sorrowless one. Here is the bad part, soko, sorrow. So jayati is to be born or arises, that's the verb. And then this is our form of the ablative with the to suffix. So sorrow is born from piya, from what is dear. Sorrow is born from what is dear. And then also, this is the next subject. This is the nominative neuter. So bayang is a neuter noun, means fear. Fear is born from what is dear. And then here, piyato vipamutasa. So vipamutasa, in a sense, is sort of a subject, but it is genitive. So for the one who is freed, and then from what is dear. So here, this word, vipamutasa, so it's vi plus pamuto, liberated. This is that, again, based on the munchati. I think we had this in the prior verse, in the genitive. So pamunchati, or munchati, to liberate. So the V would be, I think, an intensifier here. One who is fully freed from what is dear, but it really should be expressed in the genitive dative, for one or of one who is fully freed from what is dear. And then finally we have natti soko kuto bayang. So natti is simply na plus atti. And this is that other form of the verb to be, or other kind of verb to be, atti. There is not soko, sorrow. And the word kuto is a word that means something like whence, from where. It's sort of an ablative, but it has more in the sense here of like, where is fear? So for the person with these qualities, in other words, piyato vipamutasa, for the one who is freed from what is dear, there is not sorrow. Where would fear be? That's sort of what is expressed here. From whence fear? It's a question. In other words, how could there be fear? So that's sort of my translation of 212. And then maybe, I think we had Bonita who volunteered earlier, and now maybe she would like to do the next one, if she's there.
Yeah.
So we're up to Pemato.
Yeah. You can hear me, Stephen, right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Pemato jayati soko, pemato jayati bayang. It's actually pemato. Vipamutassa natti soko kuto bayang. So I translated it as, from affection springs sorrow. From affection springs apprehension. That's the bayang, the fear.
Okay.
For one who is free from affection, there is no sorrow. Where is fear?
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. So Pema could be affection. It's also translated often as love, which is tricky because in English the word love has so many meanings, and to say love is born, sorrow is born from love is can catch people off guard quite a bit. So maybe affection, as she did, is a better choice. But Pema is a tricky word to translate for that reason. But that is exactly the sense. So now we'll try Jim for Rati. And before you even read, just tell me what case and gender and number is Ratiya.
Oh, it's ablative.
No.
No, wait. It's
Well,
not.
yes.
It's
Yeah, I'm
from
sorry. You're
attachment,
right.
right?
You're right.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm thinking of something totally different. You're absolutely right. And what gender?
Oh. See, I
And
was
what?
hoping I got the ablative right because I was
No,
pretty
that
sure
was
about
right.
that, but I wasn't sure about gender. So
Well, I ask you because we've been looking at these words ending in to, right? And so my
right.
question is, why is it this one ending in ya? Why is it different?
Is it neuter?
No,
It's feminine?
it's feminine.
Okay.
So it's a feminine ablative, exactly as you say, ablative. So remember that in the feminine, many cases share an ending, and this is one of those ya suffixes. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you first then read the whole thing for us?
Sure. Ratiya Jayati Soko, Ratiya Jayati Bayam, Ratiya Vipamutasa Nati Soko Kutubayam.
Mm-hmm.
So for Ratiya, I translate as from attachment. So
Okay.
from attachment is born sorrow, from attachment is born fear. For one who is freed from attachment, there is no sorrow from where fear.
Very good. And what case is Soko? Just we're on we're on the same page here.
So I thought it was accusative.
No, with the O suffix. It's our good old masculine nominative singular.
Oh, right. Because you could say sorrow arises from attachments.
That's why I've asked you, because I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure. I think your translation was okay, but I just wanted to make sure you understood the syntax of it.
Yeah, I forgot because I kept the same word order as the Pali, but that confused me for a second. Yeah.
So yes, so Pali is playing around here in the poetry with the word order. So literally it says, from attachment, there arises, I should say, well, I have it backwards. But tell me literally the three words in your translation again. Ratiya Jayati Soko.
So from Ratiya is from attachment.
Right.
Jayati is born or arises.
Right.
And Soko is, as you said, the nominative sorrow.
Right. So literally it's I mean, but we could also take it, not literally, but we could say sorrow arises from attachment. Because the subject is sorrow. Soko. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we have Shirosha.
Good evening,
What's-
Stephen.
Good evening. So tell me about kama, which is not the same as kamma.
I translated it as sensual desire.
Okay.
It's ablative.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter.
It's a masculine, I think.
Masculine. Okay. So kamato jayati soko, kamato jayati bayam. Kamato vipamutasa nati soko kuto bayam. So from sensual desire, sorrow arises.
Good.
From sensual desire, fear arises.
Good. What case is bayang?
From, right? So it's ablative?
No, because kamato is ablative, as you said. So one has to be the subject.
Oh, okay.
So try have a second try. What case is bayang?
Is it nominative?
Yes, it's a nominative neuter.
Neuter. So from sensual desire, fear arises.
Yes.
One freed from sensual desire, for one freed from sensual desire, there is no sorrow. Whence can there be fear?
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I like the whence. It's always good to put in a whence once in a while.
It's an old word. They don't use
Yeah,
it.
it's very nice. Thank you. Okay, and now we can try, maybe we'll try punang.
Okay, Tanhaya Jayati Soko. That means sorrow arises from craving or thirst.
Yes,
Tanhaya
craving.
Jayati Bhayam. Fear arises from craving.
Yes.
Tanhaya Vippa Mustaste. For one who is free from craving, Nati Soko. There is no sorrow. Kuto Bhayam. There is fear.
Exactly. Well done. Thank you. Okay, so I think that covers these verses, and I think they're pretty straightforward once we get into the rhythm of it. Maybe I'll ask if Diane has any questions. I always want to keep up with what's happening with Diane.
Diane doesn't see the screen in YouTube, and people aren't talking to me. I asked them if there were questions, so either I'm not in YouTube or
Okay.
everybody knows exactly what's going on.
Well, I hope the screen is visible in YouTube. I wouldn't know why from here. Perhaps if Kaiti's around, she can have a quick look. Okay, but then let's go on. So those were the initial readings. And now we can go to the further readings. Our readings are getting a bit longer. It seems like this further readings section is actually a lot of readings. I've switched to a slightly smaller font. Okay, I hope that's all right. Do we have a question? Hitet, did you have a question? I see your hand is up.
Hi, Stephen. Yes.
What was your question? Was it about the Dhammapada?
Yeah, that was about the Dhammapada.
Okay, tell me now.
Sorry to come back, but I have a little bit of difficulty with piato, and I was trying to find out what case and gender is that.
Okay.
And I went to PTS dictionary, and I find it a little difficult to find it there even.
Piang. Is it neuter? I remember. Maybe we'll look it up together very quickly, see what's happening, okay?
Thank you very much.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Let's take a look. So here, pia in the first sense, which is dear, beloved. It's given as an adjective. So the to suffix is an ablative suffix, but it might not be given here as an entry. But what exactly was your question again?
Yeah, that's exactly my question. So because like it doesn't mention about to suffix, I was a little confused.
Okay, we did have the to suffix somewhere in our Garen Karuna Tilaka recently. I don't know the answer as to why it's not presented with the initial batch of ablative options. It's always given sort of later, but just remember the to suffix is also an ablative suffix.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then maybe we'll go back to further readings, or forward. No, that's not it. This. So here we find ourselves back in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Twos, Dukkha Nipata, and this is the fifth Vagga. Vagga, we'll see, has several meanings. We've talked about it already. In this book sort of connotation, it means chapter, but it also has the sort of basic sense of a division. And the key word here is parisa, which means assembly. And it's a feminine noun, feminine nominative. and I should maybe mention though the most famous usage of the word assembly of the parisa is the fourfold assembly. You know that in modern day life, lay people that get together to practice Buddhism are called sangha, but in the Pali canon, the word sangha is really limited to monastics, and lay people are not called sangha as being part of the sangha, but there is the fourfold assembly, the fourfold parisa. And what is the fourfold assembly? It is bhikkhunis, bhikkhus, upasikas, and upasakas. So lay male followers, female lay followers, monks and nuns. That would be considered the fourfold assembly. By the way, for extra credit, does anyone know, can anyone explain to us what the word upasaka or upasika means and sort of how that word comes to be? Does anyone happen to know? For extra credit, you can explain it for us right now. Raise your hand. Suddenly, radio silence. Well, okay, I'll explain it because it's interesting, because it's a word, I think, for many lay people, it's a word that exists for us. So the male version, the masculine, is this, upasaka, and then upasika would be the feminine. Oh, I see a hand. Lim, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Would you like to explain for us upasaka and upasika?
Yeah, upasaka is those men who take refuge in the three refuges.
Yes, but I'm more...
Upasika is for women.
Yes, but I'm looking for the linguistic, the word. Analyze the word for me. How does the word come together?
Oh, upa, I think it's from the word upa.
It starts with upa, that's right. Upa, and then what is the next piece?
That one I'm not sure.
It's from the root as, with a long A, which means to sit. Like we have asana, the plate, like a seat, and that's from this root as. And then the suffix ka, or ko, and for masculine, makes it a noun. And so we have upa plus the root as plus the suffix ko. So upa means close to, and as is to sit. And so it has the literal sense of one who is sitting close by. And of course, sika with the E-I-K-A, should be actually long A, would be the feminine. So it's not entirely clear to me, actually, if it's referring to one who is sitting close to monastics, or perhaps one who's sitting close to the Buddha himself. But that is the analysis of the word. Upa plus as plus ka, or ko.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So that's sort of an aside for two halves of the so-called fourfold assembly. Notice, by the way, this ika is the same as when we had in a reading last session, Arya Savika. That was referring to the teaching to Supavasa. So Arya Savako would be a masculine noble disciple, and Arya Savika, Ika, would be the female noble disciple. But this is completely different. This is not really related to that. This is maybe a more metaphorical usage of the word parisa, the feminine noun meaning assembly. And so we here see dve ma bhikkhave parisa katama dve. So here, notice first of all that this contraction is dve plus ima. So ima is a feminine plural. These two. So when it's coming together, it's dve ma. And also notice that the word for number two, dve, the number two has no gender in Pali. But some numbers do, which we've seen number one, and I think number three and number four have gender, but the rest do not. So number two does not have a gender. It's not inflected for gender. So there's sort of a hoti here, which is not required. There are these two assemblies. What are the two? So notice also that the interrogative pronoun is in the feminine as well, because it's referring all back to parisa. So monks, there are these two assemblies. What are the two? And the answer is Uttana cha parisa, Gambhira cha parisa. And so I hope by now we're getting used to the usage of the word cha, and the first instance in this sentence we would not translate it because it's sort of reflected back into the sentence in that Pali way, and then the second one comes later. So Uttana has the sense here of shallow, and Gambhira has the sense of deep. Both are matching parisa in the feminine. So there is the shallow and the deep assembly, or the shallow assembly and the deep assembly. And so of course the obvious question then comes, Katamacha bhikkhave uttana parisa. And what, O monks, is the shallow assembly? So, and then the answer comes with a sort of very long list, a kind of long list of negative things. Ida bhikkhave yasang parisayang bhikkhu udatha honti unala chappala mukara vikinna vacha asampajana asamhahita vibhantachita pakat indriya. So there's several interesting things here to note. First of all, notice that, as I mentioned, all these adjectives, which are here in a row, one precedes the verb, and the balance, the rest, come after the verb, which is quite typical. So here, ida, the word means here. But notice it's here and not in a maybe geographic sense. It means here in a sort of, in this case, in this instance. Here, and then I put in green, yasang parisayang, and I hope you have looked up what form this is, and these are the feminine locative singular forms. So yasang is that relative pronoun ya in the feminine locative singular. And so is parisayang. So the subject is bhikkhus, actually, here. Bhikkhu, which is masculine nominative plural with the long U. So here, or I should maybe start with bhikkhu, monks, here, O monks, vocative, in this assembly are honti, and here comes the long list of negative qualities, udatta, which means something like agitated, unala, arrogant, chappala, which has the sense of shaking or trembling, not trembling, but moving around, so fickle, mukara, which is related to the word for mouth, mukha, means something like noisy or chatty. Then they have vikina vacha, they have loose talk, or they're gossipy. And then we have asampajana. So here, this is a negated form of a very important and frequently encountered word, sampajana. So not with clear comprehension. Asamahita, without, usually translated as concentration. Here, vibhanta chitta. That means with a mind that is wandering. With wandering minds. And then pakat indriya. So indriya are the faculties. It also could refer to the mind. And pakat means something like uncontrolled. So they also are with uncontrolled faculties. Ayang vuchiti. This is called, O monks, the Uttana Parisa. This is the shallow assembly. These are the bad guys. So I think we'll take somebody to do the next one. I think we already have a hand up, or perhaps this is a question from Huilin. Do you have a question? Are you there, Huilin?
Yes, Stephen.
Do you have a question?
It's about the word parisa.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about the word parisa.
Okay.
It's nominative singular, feminine. But
yes, I think so.
Shouldn't it be a plural, like parisayo instead?
I see what you mean. I guess yes, it's a good question. Why is it not in the first sentence? I think you mean dve ima bhikkhave parisa. Why is it not in the plural? Because there are two assemblies, and because it seems like in this case, and there is an option for the feminine to be with this long a too. It doesn't have to be parisayo, which is also an option, as you say. So this seems to be somewhat of an exception to the rule, but it's a good question.
All right, thank you.
But it is plural because it is two. So, okay.
Yes, there is an option to choose parisa. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking now just to check in my book, but if we look together on page 18 in the grid for feminine long A, you will see for the word sala, salayo is given for the plural, but also sala, which is identical to the singular. So it is an option, and it seems to be exactly what's happening here. Okay. So I think I saw some more hands for doing the next. Yeah, Fiacra. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
So would you like to do the reading for us about the Gambhira Parisa?
Yes, I would definitely. Just before I do that, I found where the alternative ending for ablative is in the grammar. It's on page 40. That's lesson 3 and the item number 15.
Oh, thank you so much for looking that up. Yes, I have it. I've turned to it now. So yes, from that question, that important question, this alternate ablative case suffix to is explained there. Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so then katama cha bhikkhave gambhira parisa ida bhikkhave yasang parisayang bhikkhu anudata honti anunala achapala amukara avinavacha sampajana samahata ekagachita samvut indriya ayang.
Okay. Let's stop there for a second. That's good. So just a few things. Pronunciation, sampajana and samahita.
Sampajana, samahita.
Yeah,
okay, so the rule there for stress if there's a long vowel, then I just stress the long vowel.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Usually the strong or the long vowel will take the stress. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so what does that all mean?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is the what then is the shallow? What then, monks, is the shallow assembly?
But tell me what gambira means.
Gambira. That's what I was translating that one as shallow. Oh, sorry, deep. Sorry, my mistake. Deep. Sorry. Yes.
I know that's what you meant.
I associated with the opposite, but yes, sorry. Gambira is the deep one. Sorry. Yes.
Right.
Okay. So then. So here, oh bhikkhus, oh yes,
So explain for me yasang parisayang.
Yasang parisayam. So that's in the assembly in which. So yasang is the locative. There's the locative feminine of ya, and then parisayang is the locative of parisa. Yeah.
Yes, and what is bhikkhu with a long U?
Bhikkhu with a long U. Oh yes. So the bhikkhu with the long U. Okay, I thought that was just another bhikkhu.
No.
Yeah. So that's actually, is that a genitive then? Yes.
No, it should be the nominative plural, the subject of the sentence.
Okay, bhikkhu. Oh, so in these are the bhikkhus who are okay, and then the anudatta, which I think we were that they were inharmonious. Was that right? Or
I think it's more like unagitated, not agitated.
Not agitated. Okay, great. Okay, so here bhikkhus in this. So in this assembly are the bhikkhus who are not agitated.
Okay. And then unulnala.
So they are not haughty.
Okay, or arrogant. Haughty is fine.
Yeah, great. And then they are not fickle or easily movable.
Right, they're not wavering. It's not like 1 week they're like, this teacher, he knows everything. Just do what this teacher says, and then read this one book. And then the next week they think, no, it's that other teacher. That's the one, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're achapala.
Great, yeah. So they're not fickle in their opinions and in their directions. Yes. Okay, great. Then they're amukara, so they're not mouthy. They're not loud.
Yes.
Very good. And then avikinavacha, they're not gossiping. Is that right?
Right. So just to explain further, vacha means talk, and is the negator, and the vikini is literally has the sense of, I think this is a past participle. It has the sense of scattering about, throwing about. And so talk that's throwing about is sort of like gossip, loose talk.
Loose talk. Okay, thrown about talk. Yeah, broadcasting. Yeah.
And then explain for us sampajana.
Sampajana. So we have it here as thoughtful or mindful, or the not that was how I was translating that. I think you had a more special word.
Well, I go with Venerable Bodhi chooses for this word clear comprehension.
Clear comprehension.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And does that come from directly the etymology of the word?
Yeah, because jhana is from janati, to know. Right?
Okay,
the root is nya, and then it's prefixed with 2 prefixes, sang plus pa. And so both of them are sort of means like fully, complete understanding. So here, clear comprehension.
Fully complete understanding, clear comprehension. Clear comprehension. Okay, yeah.
It's related, it's often paired with sati sampajana.
Sati sampajana, so clear comprehension.
Yeah, so mindfully and clearly comprehending is like a common refrain in the suttas.
Oh yeah, yes, I've.
That would be that would be those words. And what's samahita based on? What word?
Samahita. Well, I have it as tranquil, but what would it be based on?
What is the more common word that we all, I think, know? Samadhi.
Samadhi. Okay. Oh, concentrating. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it's based on what we call concentration, samadhi. So this is samahita, the adjective.
The adjective that comes from samadhi. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then ekagachita. Explain that one.
Ekagachita. So that's, well, I have it in the vocab as of concentrated mind.
Yes. It also is literally one-pointed.
One-pointed. Okay.
So eka is one, and aga is a point. So one-pointed mind.
One-pointed mind. Okay. Yeah. So I've heard that phrase a lot, but yeah, I didn't connect it because of the.
Now you know it in Pali.
Yes, excellent. Yes.
And tell me, Sangvut Indriya.
So Sangvut Indriya. So we had Sangvuta as restrained. It was in chapter 1.
That's right, Sangvuta.
And then so now we've got Sangvut Indriya, which would mean with restrained mind. Is that right?
Yes. Indriya has a literal sense of the faculties.
The faculties.
But I think here probably means, as you said, the mind, the chitta.
Mind, yeah.
Restrained.
So is there much of a difference between Indriya and chitta? Or
there can be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But in this sense, it's actually based on the god Indra that governs things, and Indriya are the faculties. But here I think it's referring specifically to the chitta.
Okay, yeah.
Probably. I'm not 100% sure. So, very good. So, ayang vuchuti. This is called the deep assembly.
Great.
So that's good. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. I think we could go on a little bit. Maybe we'll have Ken give us the next one.
I just had a quick question about the last one.
Okay.
Ekagachita. Isn't chitta plural? Minds?
Yes, and why? Why is it plural? Why is it being, in this case, plural? Because it's referring to bhikkhus, and they're all pluralized because it's referring to this collection of monks, this assembly. Yep. So remember that adjectives must match what they're modifying in number 2.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you like to do the next one, or you just had that question?
No, I had originally volunteered for the next one.
Okay, go ahead then for 43.
We are at number 43.
Yeah.
Yeah. Divema bhikkhave parisa katama dive.
Dve.
Dve.
Katama dve.
Katama dve. Vaga cha parisa samaga cha parisa.
Okay, tell me about that.
All right. There are amongst these two companies, what two? There are quarreling assemblies and unified assemblies.
Okay, good. So let's hang on a second. So Vagga, as I mentioned at the beginning of this reading, has often the sense of a chapter, but as I did mention, it has that literal sense of a division, apart. Right. But here it has the sense of a divided assembly, not unified, which would be samagga. And I want to mention something about the word samagga, because for a long time I misunderstood this word, and I thought it was sa plus magga, which I thought was clever and beautiful, because magga would mean a path, and sa I took it as the type of sa that means together, like saha. So like they were together on one path. And so since they were together on one path, they were unified, but I was wrong. So samagga should really be broken up as to having sung plus ugga. So which is the same ugga as ekaga, which means one pointed. So it's together at one point. They're on the same page. So don't fall into the trap I did with misunderstanding that word. And okay, so then can you do the third sentence?
Katamacha bhikkhave vaga parisa. Monk, and what is a squabbling assembly?
Or the divided, the ones that divided, not unified.
Right.
Okay. Would you like to do at least part of this next sentence?
Sure. Ida bhikkhave vasang pariyasang bhikkhu.
Wait. Parisayang.
Parisayang bhikkhu bandhana jata kalahajata vivadapana viharanti.
Okay. So explain that to us.
All right. O monks, monks who are quarrelsome, disputatious, and contentious live here in this assembly.
Yeah. So
Viharanti
here
is the verb and bhikkhu is the subject.
That's right. Good. So bhikkhu is the subject, and it's here, in this case, these monks, viharanti, they dwell, and this word, this verb, has often this sort of metaphorical sense. It doesn't mean they're like living in a house, but in other words, this is their sort of state of being. This is what they're doing. In this assembly, yasang parisayang, and so we have bandhana jata. So keep in mind the suffix jata, which we have in these two words, it's from the verb janati, which means to generate, and jata has the sense of arisen or born, and so they live born of arguments in a literal sense, or they have the characteristic of argumentative characteristic, perhaps. They have argumentative characteristics. That's what the jata suffix is telling us here. And kalaha is very similar. So they have a disputatious characteristic. And vivadapana is, the suffix here is apana, actually, which has the sense of possessed of, having, or even entered upon. And so they are possessed of arguments. So they dwell possessed of arguments. So ayang vuchati bhikkhave vagga parisa. This is called, monks, the divided assembly. They're doing all these bad things. So good. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
So we're almost out of time. I think maybe we should leave the rest for next week because we don't want to give it short shrift. We'll talk about the good assembly, the samagga parisa, the united assembly. So I think that's enough for now. Are there any specific grammatical questions that seem unclear up to this point? This would be a good time to ask. If not, I just have a quick announcement. Okay, I'm glad everything seems clear. The big announcement, which is not a change, but because there's a big online retreat happening that is given by Bhikkhu Bodhi this long weekend, which is on actually Visuddhimagga and Abhidhamma, there will not be this class happening on, for me, Monday night, for some of you, Tuesday morning, because it's a direct conflict. So we will be skipping that day, and we'll be having our next class, therefore, a week from now. So thank you all very much, and I appreciate your continued hard work. I hope this doesn't seem overly complicated or confusing. If it does, don't let it concern you. Just keep at it. And I hope you can all join me again in a week where we continue. So thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank you. It was great.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ministerio Público, no se habla del Ministerio de la Defensa, no se habla del juicio popular,